A foggy morning on the Thames foreshore. The morning of November 17th, 1995, dawned cold and foggy over London. A persistent mist hugged the Thames, softening the outlines of the modern cityscape while revealing the river's ancient rhythm. At low tide, the water retreated to reveal the foreshore, that magical, muddy strip between river and city that has been London's silent witness for 8 millennia. Among the handful of mudlarks, licensed foreshore searchers out that morning, was 58-year-old retired history teacher Michael Stafford. He wasn't searching for treasure in the conventional sense. Unlike those hunting for Roman coins or Tudor jewelry, Stafford specialized in the mundane, the everyday objects that tell the real story of London's past. A piece of medieval pottery, a Georgian clay pipe, a Victorian button. These were his treasures. "I remember the mist particularly," Stafford recounted in a 2018 interview. "It felt like the modern world had receded and I was walking in some liminal space between past and present. The only sounds were the suck of mud under my boots and the distant hum of a city waking up." At approximately 9:47 a.m., near the Queen Hype dock area, one of London's oldest surviving Saxon docks, Stafford's eyes caught what appeared to be a strangely regular shape protruding from the dark silt. Most objects on the foreshore show some evidence of water-worn edges, but this had sharp, intentional lines. "I initially thought it was a piece of modern industrial waste, maybe part of a tool dropped from a construction barge. But when I pulled it from the mud, the weight was all wrong. It was dense, heavy in a way plastic or modern metal isn't." What emerged from the Thames mud was approximately 22 centimeters long, made from a single piece of antler, specifically red deer antler, carved into a shape that was unmistakably a hammer or ox head. But this was no ordinary hammer. One end had a clean, round perforation for a handle, while the opposite end widened into a brutal, wedge-shaped blade that curved slightly. Most strikingly, both sides were intricately carved with geometric patterns, concentric circles, chevrons, and a series of lines that seemed to represent something, though what exactly it was unclear. Stafford's first assumption, given London's long history of forgeries and Victorian antiquarianism where artifacts were sometimes created to satisfy collector demand, was that he'd found a 19th century reproduction. "The Victorians were obsessed with the ancient Britons," explained Dr. Eleanor Vance, a specialist in Neolithic artifacts at the British Museum. After the 1854 discovery of Swiss lake dwellings with well-preserved antler tools, there was a cottage industry in creating authentic prehistoric implements. Many ended up in private collections or even museums before being exposed. Stafford nearly discarded the find. "I almost threw it back," he admitted. "I had a bag full of genuine medieval pottery shards that were more interesting to me at that moment. But something about the carving, it felt different. The lines weren't the crisp, confident marks of a Victorian craftsman working with modern tools. They were shallower, more hesitant in places, as if carved with a flint blade." He placed the object in his finds bag and continued his search, giving it little more thought until he returned home to his small flat in Bermondsey. That evening, as Stafford cleaned his finds, a routine process involving careful brushing and freshwater rinsing, he examined the antler hammerhead under a magnifying lamp. What he saw changed everything. "Inside the perforation, the hole for the handle, I could see distinct tool marks," he said. "Not the smooth, drilled circle of a metal tool, but a ragged, reamed-out hole characteristic of being worked with a flint owl and sand. The carving, too, when magnified, showed the microscopic chowder marks of stone tools." Most tellingly, the antler had undergone significant mineralization. Over centuries in the Thames silt, it had absorbed minerals from the water, particularly calcium carbonate, transforming from porous organic material into something closer to stone. This process, known as fossilization, or more accurately, mineralization, takes centuries under Thames conditions. Stafford contacted the Museum of London's Finds Liaison Officer the next day. The initial response was polite skepticism. Scientific analysis began. Dr. James Chen, then head of the Museum of London's Archaeological Science Department, recalls the first examination. When Michael brought it in, my first thought was, interesting reproduction. But within minutes, I knew we were looking at something extraordinary. 3 separate analyses were conducted over the following 6 months. 1. Radiocarbon dating, Oxford Radiocarbon Accelerator Unit. A tiny sample, 0.2 grams from the interior of the antler, was analyzed. The result? 3510 to 3360 BCE with 95% probability. This placed its creation solidly in the late Neolithic period, approximately 5,500 years ago. 2. Tool mark analysis, University College London Institute of Archaeology. Using scanning electron microscopy, researchers identified the distinctive signatures of flint tools. Dr. Sarah Lim, who led this analysis, noted, the striations show the classic tramline effect of flint scraping, parallel grooves with occasional deeper scores where the tool caught. Metal tools leave completely different marks. 3. Mineralization and wear pattern analysis. The object showed 2 types of wear, manufacturing wear from its creation and use wear. Most significantly, the blade edge showed microscopic impact fractures and polish from cutting organic material, consistent with being used as a weapon or butchering tool. Then we noticed something chilling, Dr. Chen revealed. On the blade edge, in a crevice of the carving, we found microscopic traces of blood residue. Not just any blood, human blood. Chapter 2. The Object Itself, a masterpiece of Neolithic technology. Physical description. The London Hammerhead, catalogued as MOL 1996.12, is carved from the beam of a red deer, Cervus elephas, antler. Red deer were plentiful in Neolithic Britain, and their antlers, shed annually, were a primary raw material for tools before the widespread use of metal. Dimensions. Length 22.4 centimeters. Width at blade 8.7 centimeters. Weight 687 grams. Perforation diameter 3.2 centimeters, tapering inward. Dr. Eleanor Vance notes, the carving isn't merely decorative. Each element serves a purpose. The concentric circles around the handle holes strengthen the antler against splitting, a brilliant understanding of material properties. The chevrons provide grip when the hand is wet with blood or water. This is form and function perfectly integrated. Manufacturing technique. Reconstructing the manufacturing process reveals astonishing Neolithic skill. Step 1. Material selection. The antler beam was selected from a mature stock based on size and density. It was likely harvested after it was naturally shed, though some researchers suggest it might have been taken from a hunted animal. Step 2. Rough shaping. Using a flint hand axe, the basic shape was created. Experimental archaeology has shown this would take 8 to 12 hours of skilled work. Step 3. Perforation creation. This is the most technically challenging aspect. The 3.2 centimeter hole was created not by drilling, but by reaming, using a pointed flint tool with sand as an abrasive. Experiments suggest this alone would take 20 to 30 hours. Step 4. Fine shaping and blade creation. The wedge-shaped blade was created through controlled flaking and grinding with sandstone. The edge was then sharpened to approximately 30 degrees, the optimal angle for cutting flesh without becoming brittle. Step 5. Carving. Using fine flint bravers, tools with sharp points, the geometric patterns were incised. This represents another 15 to 20 hours of work. Total estimated manufacturing time, 45 to 65 hours. Consider what this means, emphasizes Dr. Vance. Someone in Neolithic Britain invested the equivalent of a modern work week creating a single tool. This wasn't expedient technology. This was an object of immense value and significance. Functional analysis. What was it used for? Initially classified as a hammer or axe, closer analysis revealed a more complex story. 1. Combat weapon hypothesis. The blood residue, confirmed as human through protein analysis in 2002, suggests violent use. The weight distribution, forward heavy like a modern hatchet, makes it effective for swinging. Experimental tests with replicas show it could fracture a human skull with a single blow. 2. Ritual killing tool. The excessive decoration for a practical weapon suggests ceremonial use. Similar objects from continental Europe, though none as elaborate, have been interpreted as sacrificial implements. 3. Butchering tool. The blade geometry is ideal for disarticulating joints, separating limbs at the joints rather than chopping through bone. This is consistent with both animal butchery and dismemberment. 4. Status symbol. Some researchers argue it was primarily a display object, a Neolithic badge of office for a leader or shaman. Most likely scenario, it served multiple functions: a weapon when needed, a ceremonial object during rituals, and a symbol of authority at all times. Chapter 3. The World That Created It. Neolithic London. The Thames Valley 5,500 years ago. To understand the Hammerhead, we must first erase modern London from our minds. In 3500 BCE, sea levels were approximately 4 meters lower than today. The Thames was narrower but deeper, with extensive marshes along its banks. Forest cover was dense. The valley was a mosaic of oak, lime, and hazel woodland, with clearances for agriculture beginning to appear. Human population in the entire Thames Valley was likely less than 5,000 people. They lived in small, scattered communities rather than villages. Climate was slightly warmer than today, the tail end of the Holocene climatic optimum. The people, Neolithic Londoners. These weren't the primitive cave dwellers of Victorian imagination. Neolithic Britons practiced agriculture. They grew emmer wheat, barley, and flax, and raised cattle, pigs, sheep, and goats. They built monumental structures. The first phases of Stonehenge were underway 80 miles west. Locally, they built causewayed enclosures, ritual gathering sites, and long barrows, communal tombs. They traded extensively: stone axes from Cornwall, flint from Norfolk, jet from Yorkshire, and even jadeite axes from the Alps have been found in the Thames Valley. They had complex belief systems: burial practices, ritual deposits in water, and the orientation of monuments suggest sophisticated cosmology. The ritual landscape of the Thames. The Thames wasn't just a river to Neolithic people. It was a sacred boundary between worlds. Dr. Richard Harper, an expert on prehistoric ritual landscapes, explains, "We find an extraordinary concentration of ritual activity along the Thames, not settlements. Those are usually on higher ground away from the river, but deliberate deposits, finely made objects placed in the water, often at specific locations like confluences or bends. These votive deposits include polished stone axes, over 400 found in the Thames, human skulls often showing violence, animal remains, particularly dogs and cattle, and ceremonial pottery. The Hammerhead fits this pattern perfectly," says Harper. "It was almost certainly placed in the river intentionally, not lost. The question is, why?" Chapter 4. The Blood Residue. A Neolithic Murder Mystery. The discovery that changed everything. In 2002, advances in protein analysis allowed researchers to extract and identify the blood residue found in the carving crevices.
The results were shocking. Primary residue, human blood, type O, the most common type today and likely in prehistory. Secondary residue, bovine, cattle blood. Tertiary traces, possibly dog or pig. Most chillingly, the human blood showed signs of coagulation proteins, indicating it was fresh when it contacted the tool, not added later. Violence in Neolithic Britain. Contrary to the peaceful farmer image popular in some archaeology, evidence suggests Neolithic Britain was often violent. Massacre sites like Wayland's Smithy, 14 individuals with traumatic injuries. Trophy taking, modified human skulls used as cups or displays. Ritual cannibalism evidence at Hamilton Hill, and defensive structures at causewayed enclosures. Dr. Miranda Cross, a specialist in prehistoric violence, notes, the period 3500 to 3000 BCE shows a spike in traumatic injuries and skeletal remains. This coincides with climate deterioration, population pressure, and the expansion of agriculture. Resources were becoming contested. The Hammerhead's victims. Forensic analysis suggests the tool was used on at least 3 individuals. 1. A downward blow to a skull, based on impact fracture patterns. 2. A slicing motion through muscle tissue. The polish patterns suggest repeated cutting. 3. Possibly a thrusting motion. There's a puncture-like damage at the very tip. We can't say these were fatal injuries, cautions Dr. Cross, but they were certainly intended to incapacitate or kill. This was no ceremonial object that was never used. It saw violent action. Ritual or warfare? The key question, was this tool used in interpersonal violence, murder, execution, ritual sacrifice, known from continental Europe, warfare, raiding between groups, or funerary practices, dismemberment before burial? The evidence is ambiguous but points towards ritualized violence. The excessive decoration suggests ceremonial importance, while the practical design indicates it was meant for use. Chapter 5. The Carving Code. Deciphering Neolithic Symbolism. Comparative analysis. The Hammerhead's carvings aren't unique in isolation. Similar motifs appear across Neolithic Europe. Concentric circles, found at Newgrange in Ireland, Gavernus in France, and on megalithic art across Britain, generally interpreted as solar symbols, portals, or eyes. Chevrons, common on grooved ware pottery, the dominant Neolithic pottery style, may represent water, mountains, or supernatural beings. Parallel lines, ubiquitous in megalithic art, possibly counting systems, calendars, or maps. A possible maker's mark. Most intriguing is a small cluster of marks near the perforation that don't match the overall geometric pattern. Dr. Thomas Fisher, who has studied Neolithic symbol systems for 30 years, believes this might be a personal identifier. It's faint, but there appear to be 7 marks arranged in what might be a constellation pattern. We know Neolithic people had sophisticated astronomy. Stonehenge is essentially an astronomical observatory. This could be the maker's or owner's signature, perhaps representing a particular star cluster visible at their birth or at the tool's creation. The killing calendar theory. Some researchers have noted numerical patterns. 14 concentric circles, 14 days from new to full moon, 72 chevrons, 72 is 1/5 of 360, a solar division, 120 parallel lines, approximately 1/3 of 365. These numbers aren't random, suggests Dr. Fisher. They may represent a lunar solar calendar. If so, this tool wasn't just a weapon, it was a ritual object used at specific times in the ceremonial year, perhaps the winter solstice or the spring equinox. Experimental replication. In 2015, flint knapper John Lord attempted to recreate the hammerhead using only Neolithic tools and techniques. His findings:
The carving was the most difficult. Maintaining consistent depth and spacing without modern measuring tools required incredible skill. I made several mistakes and had to start over twice. The original craftsman made none. Lord's experiment also revealed something unexpected. When you hold it, your thumb naturally falls into the chevron pattern. It's ergonomically perfect, and when you swing it, there's a balance that feels both efficient and ritualistic. It wants to be used in a specific way, an overhead two-handed swing.
Chapter 6. The Thames as Archive. What else is down there? The foreshore's hidden treasures. The Thames foreshore is arguably Britain's largest archaeological site, continuously revealing objects from every period of human history. The Hammerhead is just one of millions of finds, but its preservation is exceptional. Why do objects preserve so well in Thames mud? Asks Dr. Chen. The answer is anaerobic conditions. Once buried below a certain depth, oxygen can't penetrate. Organic materials, wood, leather, antler, that would rot elsewhere, can survive for millennia. Notable contemporary finds. Other late Neolithic finds from the Thames include the Battersea Shield, actually Iron Age, but shows continuity of ritual deposition. The Wandsworth Mask, a ceremonial piece from the Bronze Age. Over 400 polished stone axes from Cornwall, Wales, and the Alps. The daggers of Bushy Park, flint daggers with intricate pressure flaking. And human remains, particularly skulls, many showing violence. The pattern of deposition. There appears to be a spatial pattern of Neolithic deposits in the Thames. Upper reaches, above Westminster, more domestic items, suggesting accidental loss. Middle reaches, from Westminster to Tower, concentration of high-value ritual objects. And lower reaches, below Tower, more human remains, particularly skulls. The Hammerhead was found in the middle zone, the ritual core. Climate change threat. Paradoxically, the Thames's role as preserver is now threatened. Increased tidal scour from climate change is eroding the foreshore faster than we can record it, warns Dr. Vance. Objects that have lain safely for 5,000 years are suddenly being exposed, damaged, and washed away. The Hammerhead was found just in time,